Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Park and Recreation will start in 30 seconds. Park and Recreation will start in 30 seconds. We'll go ahead and get started with Park and Recreation. I don't believe we have any minutes of any merit at this time, so we'll forego that. We'll get right into our meeting. The purpose of this meeting today is I've reached out to Mr. Hardy, and I just asked him to come and give us an update on the success of Lock 3. You know, the city took the time to survey residents and get their input on Lock 3. I think we saw evidence of some of that this summer with some of the changes. So just want to get an update on one, from the city standpoint, the success of it. I shared with Mr. Hardy. I think the Ruben Studdard concert was where people want to see us. Got a lot of positive responses from that. I liked when I sat and looked at the crowd, the diversity in the crowd. Sometimes because of the music we play, we get one segment of folk there. But the diversity was there, and so, you know, I was getting a lot of comments from folks too. So I just wanted to hear from Mr. Hardy on the city's perspective of the success of Lock 3. Wanted to know, you know, from a finance side, how things went. So, Mr. Hardy, if you don't mind, sir.
Please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Just to provide a brief overview, and then happy to take questions. We're doing quite well as far as attendance goes so far. This does not include the most recent Oktoberfest numbers, but we're at 253,392 unique visitors in 2019. That's about 11,000 more than where we were at last year. We also had a very strong Winterfest last year, which the way we calculate attendance technically sits in the 2018 column, but I know that a lot of times with construction and things, there's concern about folks coming to Lock 3 or to the Civic or others, and we have not seen that, and we've been staying strong. We will have some minor tweaks to Winterfest. So first of all, we're not going to call it Winterfest anymore. I believe we're calling it Polar Blast, but that's out of my realm of expertise. But essentially, it's not a festival, it's more of an ongoing event. And so the team wanted to shake it up a little bit. We'll still have all the usual, the skating, the tree lighting ceremony, as well as bumper cars that were very popular last year. We're also going to be adding ice bicycles. Bear with me. I didn't know they existed either, but apparently they do, but they are incredible for senior populations. Children of all ability levels in terms of developmental abilities, and folks like me who cannot skate no matter how hard they try to get out there with their kids. So we're going to have a lot of different options for folks on the skating rink this year. So as far as attendance goes, we're doing quite well. Financially, we're about break even. Expenses versus revenue, we're down about $84,000, which sounds like a tremendous amount, but when you think about the fact that all in, we spend about, I would say, about $1 million a year on Lock 3 all in. To be down by that little so far this year, I think we're doing pretty well. We tend to operate about break even, but I do have the information show by show, so if there's a specific event or show that you're curious about, I can speak to that. As Chairman Neal talked about, we have made some changes year over year based on community input, and we'll continue to do that. Some of our Friday Night Rock the Locks, for example, have not been a crowd favorite, and so we're going to be switching some of them out for next year. We continue to look for different festivals that might fit well. So Pizza Fest, for example, was a new one this year that did really well. It was a partnership with an entity, a promoting group out of Cleveland, but unlike the Hamburger Fest where it was 100% private, it was a partnership. So we ended up doing pretty well on Pizza Fest, and we had very good crowds. The weather has been tremendous this year, so sometimes the weather dictates how good of a year we do, and so far we've been very lucky there. Long term, I think it's good to have on the committee and council's minds that as part of the footprint for Civic Commons, as Civic Commons 2.0 prayerfully comes out, hopefully soon, I do know that there's been strong interest from private funders to improve Lock 3 from a physical standpoint. So Lock 3, as we all know, is the most successful pop-up we've ever done, meaning it was never supposed to still be there 20 years on. It was supposed to be developed, but it's become such a great park, but it doesn't feel like a park. It's great when it's a concert going on, but when there's not a concert, it doesn't really feel that inviting as our city's central park downtown, if you will. So the Knight Foundation on its own has been working with us in partnership, but they funded it 100% to try and get take the GPD community assessment that we did around what should Lock 3 look and feel like in the future, and put some real teeth in terms of potential design plans that council could consider in future capital budget cycles. So our attendance is strong, our revenue is strong. I think that there seems to be a great deal of interest from private philanthropy to try and improve the park over the next 5 years physically. The last thing I want to point out is something that we've talked a lot about, which is how do we get better with tracking specific financials. So we did implement, partly at council's request, credit card readers throughout the park, and we've been doing that for about a year. I recently got the okay from Finance, and Tish is now working with Cheryl Bryson, the city treasurer, to completely overhaul even the hardware into a true point of sale system. So we are still, believe it or not, in our concession stands, still using some Sam's Club purchased cash registers. And so while we can definitely control and make sure that our finances are in order from a oversight perspective, you as well as I want to get deeper into the data in terms of how we move the revenue down at Lock 3 while staying affordable. And so in 2020 budget, I've been assured we will have the operating dollars to make a full switch over to some type of hardware system, whether it's Square or something like it. We're looking at all of those, is my understanding. So that's still in process. And with that, happy to take any questions, thoughts, or concerns.
Thank you, sir. I have a couple. You mentioned $1 million spent down there. As far as just the concert portion, especially those where we're charging, are we making money on those?
As a whole, no. Individual concerts sometimes do, but all in, we are still, I'm looking at, we're still, 84,323 just on this summer's festivals and concerts. That's all in. But specific ones do make money. Like, for example, our Rib Fest every year makes a little bit of money. So we made $3,592 on the Rib Fest all in, when all expenses were paid and all revenues were in. We typically do very well with Rock the Lock because of our sponsorships, and because we're now doing the Give Back Fridays, where we collect a $5 charge at the cover for one Friday a month. $2 goes to the city, and then $3 goes into a pot to be divvied up by nonprofits at the end of the summer. So that helps to defer some costs, and some of them make a considerable amount of money. Like, for example, Absolute Journey, the cover band, actually netted $11,253. But then when we look at Donnie Iris, which I will take full responsibility for, even though I'm not a huge Donnie Iris fan, we're trying to get some more name brand artists into Lock 3. We ended up taking pretty big bath on that. We lost about 30 grand on that concert. So when it all evens out, some concerts do really well, some don't. And it's when you're trying some new things, like Journey does well every year. That crowd's coming no matter what. Similarly, Old School Soul does good every year. Doesn't matter who we book, that is a date on the calendar that everyone comes. It sort of evens out, which is where we try and stay break even so we can try some new things while keeping the things that people have come to expect. So when I say we spend about $1 million on Lock 3, that's all in. That's salaries, that's maintenance, that's not just Lock 3, that's Locks 4, 2, and all the downtown operations, Rib Fest, all of those types of things. And we bring in a considerable amount of revenue to offset that in sponsorships. But just looking at the concerts, we're, I would say, close to break even right now.
One of the things that was asked, like, I don't know how, like the Donnie Iris, I don't know what the ticket price was for that
Right.
show or not. But let's say, I could imagine you have to spend at least 15 for a group.
Yeah.
15 to 20, maybe 25 is where we try to stay.
We try and stay in there. Some groups, if there's a special tour going on like Reuben, you know, we make the call to go a little bit higher, but you're absolutely right. We tend to stay between 15 and 30,000 for a paid act.
Because one of the things, and honestly, I believe if we had a city coffee talk on Lot 3 Entertainment, we would have a huge turnout, especially if people knew that they were going to see the results.
Sure.
One of the things that I was asked if we would think of, if out the door we've got to spend $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 for a group, what if we had a list of vendors, promoters? We give them Lot 3, and then we split the concessions. We would come out 15, 20, 30,000, whatever it is. They would get all the ticket revenue, and then we would split the concessions with them. Those were some things to think about. I think you and I had talked about this before. Like if you got a, I don't go to every concert that's down there, but if I knew there were going to be 5 concerts, and if I paid $40, I get to go to every concert. I may only go to 2, but just for the benefit. So I think some things like that are some of the things that I've heard from folks, because they're like, people know. My wife and I went to a concert, and we went to go see Frankie Beverly. Our tickets were $100 a piece. Any mainstream act, you're up, if you get a ticket for $85, you're cheap. So I say that from a city standpoint. I believe we could push ours up to 25, 30, even 40 on some groups, because people would know that they're getting a heck of a good deal if it's someone like I'll just use an Anthony Hamilton or a Kim.
Oh, yeah.
Or somebody like that. So I don't want to, that's what I'd like for us to, you know, pull those out and see if that's, maybe we just try 1 or 2 of them. Because I see where you mentioned, like, we partner on Pizza Fest and Burger Fest. You have some idea how that is. Because if they're taking over the venue, they're going to do all the advertising on the radio, they're going to do all that kind of stuff. Just a thought. I don't know if anybody else has anything else, because I don't want to take time from, I think we have a public service.
Those are very good points. And we do want to work more with promoters, pool the risk so it's not all in the city, so we're open to that as well.
Okay. Well, I'd like to get with you, because honestly,
Okay.
that sort of like a table talk just about entertainment in that area, I think would generate a lot of interest. Okay. Are any questions? Oh, Ms. Sims?
So I'm so excited about the potential of developing Lot 3, because the concerts are at a point in time, but there's still like a lull when the spot has not been. Is the intent to create it to look more like, say, a Central Park, so that people would just come, lounge there for lunch? That's one question, but how are we counting the numbers of the folks who are utilizing the space that are not part of the concert? Because I go to a number of events down there that has nothing to do with a concert. So how are we counting those numbers, or are they rolled into 236,000, blah, blah, blah?
No, that's both excellent points. I'll do the latter first. The 253,392 number does not include all of the nonprofits that come through. Doesn't include the Sickle Cell Walk. It doesn't include Susan G. Komen, though there are probably tens of thousands more people that come through Lock 3 and utilize it on the nonprofit side that don't have anything to do with city. This is just city-sponsored events. But to your former question, you're thinking about it, I think, exactly the way that we are, and those that are interested in the future Lock 3 are thinking it. How can it be more park-like when it's not a concert venue? And beyond that, we have a real opportunity underneath State Street Bridge, now that State Street Bridge is being redone. where the old volleyball court's right behind, there's a pretty decent-sized space between where Canal Park's home run fence is and State Street Bridge. How can that be something that's really magical and special for kids? We don't have a lot of, outside of the Children's Museum, which is more indoors, we don't have big playground spaces downtown. You've got Children's Hospital there with all their patients and families. You've got people that are going to be living more downtown. How do we do that? So those, I think, are the two big questions that the Knight Foundation and others are seeking to answer in consultation with us, of course, in Civic Commons 2.0.
Let me say, too, and those are all good things that's happening in the downtown area, but as we think about that, I'd like us to think about, too, the towpath that runs through two major housing developments.
Yeah.
That basically I can take the towpath and walk it downtown. Part of, one of the things that was very big, particularly in the African American community at one point in time, was the African American Festival. And so it's now downtown. It's different. It doesn't look like it looked at Lanes Field, but if we were spending resources kind of on the towpath, that people know they can walk and get to there by doing that, I think it would be worth thinking as we think about designs. How do we still create a welcoming environment, not just for the folks downtown, but the folks who can take the towpath and go directly downtown. But I definitely like, we had those pop-up swings outside, things like that said, that the park is for use beyond just these big events, but it can be used all the time as we look at downtown destinations for workers who got 45 minutes to eat lunch.
Yeah.
Ideally, that would be great.
Good points.
Thank you.
I want to close, but I do want to make one more point. Something else I heard from folks. I don't know if the city, I'm sure the city has something to do, but the first Friday skate parties downtown?
That's a DAP thing, but we do help to facilitate it.
I heard, I don't know.
Good things?
Yeah, I heard people love that.
All right, good.
So
we're going to do them again, so.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Thank you. If there's nothing else we can come for us, we're adjourned.
I'd like to call the public service meeting to order, please. I probably shouldn't say like that. Mr. Moore, it took you only a second to get here from the second floor. That was amazing.
I was in the back hallway looking for you.
Oh, were you really?
I went back to your office.
My purse was there.
I got it.
Okay.
I got the money,
Put
actually.
money in it?
I left the purse. I didn't.
Didn't match your outfit, huh? Okay, I would like to call the public service meeting to order. All members are present. And if we could have an approval on the minutes from our last meeting. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any against? Seeing none, they will pass as is. We have nothing on our old agenda, but we do have 2 items on our new legislation. Item number 6 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of advertising for bids with Siemens Industry, Inc. for the integration of a door security system at the Municipal Service Center and declaring an emergency. Mr. Moore.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, this would allow us to install 7 new doors and the security systems that go along with those doors, so you have a card reader pass, kind of like what we have down at the basement of this building. That would be out at the Municipal Service Center, which is building number 1. That's the big long building there right behind the water department where Mr. Hull and his group hang out. All the doors are locked now except for the back door, so people can come in the back door, but it's kind of inconvenient, or you have to go clear to the back to get into the building. So this would be a great improvement for us, and it would also be very secure for the people that work in that building.
And Mr. Hall would be secure now in that position.
There's a lot of people after him.
I'm sure. Are there any questions or comments from member of the committee? Any questions from other council members in the chamber? Seeing none, what is your pleasure?
Consent would be fine.
Okay. May I have a motion for the consent? Okay, I have a motion, and do I have a second? And I have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, this will be placed on the consent agenda. The next piece to come before us, number 7, is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee after publicly advertising for bids to enter into a contract or contracts for the purchase and installation of windows at Lock 3 and declaring an emergency. Mr. Moore?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, this would allow us to place some windows in the skate rental area down at Lock 3. If you've ever been in there, it's kind of a dark space, and they'd like to use it for like programming birthday events and those kinds of things. It would significantly brighten up the atmosphere. I have some pictures.
These? Yeah, yeah. I just want to know who wrote new windows on those walls.
I want to say Letitia did that. It wasn't me.
You know, this area is, I belong to the Children's Museum, and this area, you walk through it, and it is dark, and that museum has attracted more families and people. So to me, I think it'd be money well spent, but I'm going to turn it over to the committee to see if they have any questions or concerns. Seeing none, any council members in their chambers have a question or a concern? Seeing none, what is your?
Consent would be fine.
Okay. May I have a motion for the consent agenda? Okay, I have a motion from Councilman Kaber and a second from Councilwoman Mosley Samples. Okay, is there anything else to come before the committee? Seeing and hearing none, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Was that fast enough?